Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's regional workshop. We're going to give people a few minutes to join and get brought in from the waiting room, and then we will get started. Again, welcome to the North Coast Regional Workshop. We're just giving folks a few minutes to join from the waiting room, log in, and get onto the system. We'll be starting momentarily. Again, we're going to wait just a few more minutes, and then we'll get started for today's regional workshop in the North Coast region. Again, we're just letting a few more people in from the waiting room, and we'll get started momentarily. You're in the virtual workshop for the North Coast region for advancing 30 by 30 in climate smart lands. All right, I think we're going to get started. We know people will come in and out as we go, but welcome to the 6th of the 9 virtual regional workshops for advancing 30 by 30 in climate smart lands. Today, we're in the North Coast region. We're excited to have you join us, and we look forward to collaborating with you today. My name is Lisa Mariali, and I'll be facilitating today's regional workshop. We want to start with a few housekeeping items. This workshop is being recorded for further viewing and will be posted on the project website. We are also streaming tonight's meeting on the CNRA YouTube page. This meeting is also being interpreted in Spanish, Vietnamese, Cantonese, and Mandarin. If you need interpretation services, please provide your language in the chat or raise your hand with the raise hand function by clicking the reaction button. And if you're joining us on the phone, please dial *9. In order to access the audio channel for any of these languages, please click the interpretation button, the globe icon on the Zoom taskbar after these instructions. These instructions will repeat in all languages, and then you will be able to join the audio channel for the language you desire. Again, at the end of these instructions, the interpretation button will appear, and you can join your language. Please welcome our Spanish translator, Victor Hernandez. Victor?
Thank you, Lisa Marie. Muy buenas tardes. Les queremos dejar saber que esta reunión será interpretada en el español, vietnamita, cantonés y mandarín. Para poder acceder al canal de audio de cualquiera de estos idiomas, usted tendrá que hacer clic en el botón de interpretación, que es el icono del globo, es decir, un símbolo del mundo en la barra de tareas de la plataforma de Zoom. Entonces aparecerá un menú y podrá usted seleccionar el idioma que necesite. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. And next up is Vietnamese with Tiffany Tong. Tiffany?
Hi, yes. Xin chào quý vị, chào mừng quý vị đến với hội thảo khu vực trực tuyến về những giải pháp dựa vào thiên nhiên. Xin đưa ra bất kỳ câu hỏi nào về kỹ thuật mà quý vị có vào khung hội thoại. Nếu quý vị cần các dịch vụ phiên dịch, xin ghi rõ tên ngôn ngữ của quý vị vào khung hội thoại và chúng tôi sẽ đáp ứng nhu cầu của quý vị. Quý vị có thể chú ý thấy rằng nhóm chúng tôi sử dụng chức năng giơ tay raise hand bằng cách nhấn vào nút phản hồi để tham gia hội thảo bằng tiếng Tây Ban Nha, tiếng Việt, tiếng phổ thông hay tiếng quan thoại. Xin nhấn nút phiên dịch hình quả địa cầu ở bên màn hình bên tay phải để mà chọn cái ngôn ngữ của quý vị. Cảm ơn quý vị rất nhiều. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiffany. And now in Mandarin, Kathy Wu.
Hello， 大家好，我的名字是 Kathy Wu， 我将为这个会议做国语普通话同声传译，欢迎大家来参加我们的会议。需要中文翻译，请用口译的按钮，是一个圆形的，像地球一样子的，在你屏幕下面 Taskbar 任務欄下面按一下就可以選國語或者廣東話，可以選 Cantonese。想要看英文字幕，可以在下面用按CC 就可以看到英文，然后你可以中文、英文都可以转换的。如果是也可以用聊天 chat 来讲你需要国语或广东话，或者用 reaction 这个按钮，然后按这个举手也可以告诉我们你需要国语或者广东话翻译。谢謝 ，Thank you。
Thank you. And now for Cantonese, Wei Tang. Wei?
係thank you 係今晚嘅會議咧，係將會係翻譯成呢個係西班牙話啦，呢個越南話啦，廣東話同埋國語普通話4種語言嘅。要使用咧係以上任何一種語言嘅語音嘅頻道咧，請單擊呢個熒幕下方任務欄嘅口譯功能嘅按鈕，英文係寫住 interpretation 嘅。咁咧就係嗰個樣咧係有似一個係地球咁樣嘅圖標嘅。咁咧就係然後咧選咗之後咧就會出現一個係選項單啦。請你係從中咧係選取呢個廣東話。如果講國語嘅人係請你選呢個係呢個係Mandarin 啦。咁咧然後咧就係呢個信息結束之後咧，咁咧就係主辦者咧就會係正式係啟動呢個口譯功能。請你咧係即刻咧做出嚟嘅選擇。咁咧同時咧就可以開始係呢個係即時傳譯㗎啦。咁就一陣間喺呢個係廣東話嘅頻道裏邊咧，再同大家係會面嘅。好感謝嚇 ，thank you。
Thank you, Wei. We now invite participants needing interpretation services to use the audio channels. Please click the interpretation button, which is the globe icon in the Zoom taskbar. Next, we wanted to make sure everyone is aware that closed captioning is available. If you'd like to use this option, please click the closed caption icon in the Zoom taskbar and select subtitles to view subtitles on the screen or live transcript to see the full transcript on the side panel. Next, I wanted to talk about how participants will generally be muted during the workshop and will be participating primarily via polling. No video is required. If you do need technical assistance, please contact the technical support team by using the chat button on the Zoom taskbar. We will also share relevant links through the chat feature. How to participate. Participants can also request technical assistance by using the raise hand function. If you have the latest version of Zoom, click on reactions in the Zoom taskbar, then select raise your hand. Otherwise, raise hand will already be visible in the Zoom taskbar at the bottom of your screen or at the bottom of the participant tab. And if you're joining us on the phone, you can press *9 to get assistance. We have a large number of members participating today, both virtually via the webinar and by phone, and we want to make this workshop as productive as possible. We remind the following: please be respectful to each other and the workshop agenda and objectives. Threatening, profane, or inappropriate language is not allowed, and disruptive participants will be removed from the workshop. We invite your cooperation in making this productive for everyone involved. Facilitating today's workshop with me are my colleagues Jenna Torget and Debbie Schechter. Joining us from the California Natural Resources Agency are Jennifer Norris, Deputy Secretary for Biodiversity and Habitat, Amanda Hansen, Deputy Secretary for Climate Change, and Mark Gold, Deputy Secretary for Oceans and Coastal Policies, and the Executive Director for the Ocean Protection Council. These 9 regional meetings are designed to ensure that the state hears from a broad cross-section of stakeholders with vital interests in how California achieves goals of conserving 30% of lands and coastal waters by 2030 and accelerating nature-based climate solution. Our objectives today are threefold and include the following: providing an overview of nature-based solutions and relevant actions in Governor Newsom's Executive Order N8220, introducing the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy and Pathways to 30 by 30, and most importantly, hearing from you and gaining your regional perspectives and ideas. Today's meeting is structured in a way that we'll spend about 40 minutes providing you with updates, and the rest of the time conducting polling activities aimed at gathering your insights, experience, and ideas from the stakeholders that we're here to talk to. After brief presentations by Secretary Wade Crowfoot, Jennifer, Amanda, and Mark, we'll kick off the public engagement portion of the meeting. We will then break out into 3 small groups to engage in interactive polling, asking a range of questions on a variety of topics. These sessions will go by quickly, so please respond to your polling questions as concisely as possible. We will also provide other ways to gather more information from you as this process unfolds. Now I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer Norris to share a tribal acknowledgement. Jen?
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jennifer Norris, Deputy Secretary for Biodiversity and Habitat. I would like to start by acknowledging the importance of tribal communities in this process. Our tribal partners are integral to achieving the goals set forth in the Governor's Executive Order. We know that by working together, we can further safeguard the environment, preserve tribal cultural practices, and strengthen relationships between the state and tribal nations. The Resources Agency is currently engaging tribes through government-to-government consultation. In addition, in coming months, we will be holding tribal listening sessions to engage tribes, solicit tribal input, and explore opportunities to collaborate. We look forward to working with our tribal partners and encourage those who would like to connect with us on tribal perspectives to visit our website to see a schedule of the listening sessions. Please visit our website at www.resources.ca.gov. I also want to acknowledge any elected officials that joined today. Thank you so much for your participation. Public engagement is critically important to the state, even as we continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that virtual meetings are not the ideal way to have a conversation. But we didn't want to delay this important work on 30 by 30 and climate smart lands. So while this isn't how we envisioned, we are hopeful that these meetings can be productive and positive for everyone. Collaboration is essential to achieving the goals outlined in the executive order. And as we begin our conversations today, I want to underscore our commitment to engaging all voices, all perspectives, and to advancing equity in everything we do. We begin today with opening remarks from Wade Crowfoot, Secretary of the California Natural Resources Agency, which protects and manages California's natural resources, including our forests, rivers and waterways, coast and ocean, fish and wildlife, and energy resources. Now, Secretary Crowfoot.
I'm Wade Crowfoot, our California Natural Resources Secretary. Welcome and thank you for joining one of 9 virtual regional workshops to advance nature-based solutions across our state. Last fall, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that elevated the role of nature in both combating climate change, maintaining and protecting our biological diversity, and achieving more equitable access to our outdoors. In our agency, the Natural Resources Agency, we're really excited about the governor's leadership that's, of course, matched by our legislature on expanding environmental conservation across our state to achieve these multiple objectives. We live in a remarkable state, known around the world for our natural diversity of plants and animals, topographies, ecosystems, and our cultural diversity, where we are succeeding and thriving across all conceivable differences within our human species. The work that you'll be involved in and the input you provide will ensure that looking forward in coming years and decades, we craft smart, ambitious, but achievable strategies to expand environmental conservation and utilize nature in the fight against climate change. In that executive order that Governor Newsom issued last fall, he called for conserving 30% of our state's land and coastal waters by 2030, which we call the 30 by 30 target. He also called for the development of a climate-smart land strategy so we can understand how we better manage both our natural and working lands to both remove carbon from the atmosphere and protect people and nature from the impacts of climate change. The best ideas we have and the most effective actions will achieve multiple benefits. At the same time, combating climate change, preserving biodiversity, and expanding recreational and outdoor access for all Californians. We know there are no one-size-fits-all solutions from Sacramento for this work, and our regions are so different in both the challenges they face and the opportunities they offer, that these regional workshops are really critical to help us understand what is the situation in your part of California. What are critical priorities in this area that we need to address? What are challenges you face to environmental conservation and climate action and equitable access? And importantly, what are opportunities for our state agency and more importantly, our state government to help you seize these opportunities in your region to expand equitable, thoughtful, sustainable, balanced environmental conservation? So we're really excited with your participation and look forward to these regional workshops figuring in and informing both a strategy for the achievement of the 30 by 30 target and our climate smart land strategy coming up in recent months. Really appreciate all that you do in your own lives on these important topics, and very excited to hear from you today and in coming weeks and months. Thank you.
And that was Secretary Crowfoot doing some opening remarks. Now I would like to pitch it over to Amanda Hansen to talk about nature-based solutions. Amanda?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Lisa. And thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Amanda Hansen, and I'm going to provide some background on why Governor Newsom issued an executive order on nature-based solutions, what nature-based solutions are and why they matter, and a little background on the deliverables that Secretary Crowfoot just teed up as the focus of our workshop today. I'll outline some of the goals of the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy and how it might support your priorities, and then I'll hand it off to Jen to talk about our 30 by 30 effort. So climate change and biodiversity loss are among the top 5 threats humanity will face in the next 10 years. And as we all know too well, California is not immune to these crises. Last year alone, historic wildfires burned over 4 million acres in California. Lives were lost, homes and businesses were destroyed, public health suffered from hazardous air quality, and nature we treasure is gone. These fires took place in the middle of a deadly pandemic and heat wave, and on the heels of the most extreme drought in the state's history. California is considered one of the world's 36 biodiversity hotspots because of our high concentration of unique species that are also experiencing unprecedented threats, including climate change. So the governor issued the nature-based solutions executive order in direct response to these threats and outlined a comprehensive and results-oriented agenda for California, which brings us to what are nature-based solutions and why are they important? So when we talk about nature-based solutions, we're talking about actions that work with and enhance nature to help address societal challenges. And they're important because they provide so many benefits, many of which we depend on for our well-being. This slide shows a few examples of nature-based solutions that address climate change and protect biodiversity. The circular image you see is an example of community greening, a suite of nature-based solutions that can cool communities facing extreme heat, reduce energy costs, allow soils to better absorb water, expand access to nature, enhance biodiversity, reduce the impacts of pollution, and increase quality of life. The top right image shows wetlands and riparian areas which sequester carbon, reduce flood risk, filter pollution, and protect habitat. The middle right image is an example of an agricultural nature-based solution. This hedgerow supports pollinators, improves habitat, conserves water, enhances our food supply, and contributes to our economic prosperity. And finally, the lower right image speaks to the many benefits nature-based climate solutions deliver in our forests. Healthy forests reduce the threat of catastrophic wildfire and serve as a carbon sink. They also capture and clean our water supply. They improve our air quality, provide habitat for wildlife, and support local economies. So I'm going to briefly outline our goals for the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy and explore how it might support your regional priorities. Natural and working lands is the term that we use here in California to describe the nature-based solutions sector, which consists of the iconic landscapes that we know and love, our forests, wetlands, croplands, community green spaces, grasslands, deserts, and more. These lands cover 90% of the state's 104 million acres. While our lands offer significant opportunity to meet California's climate goals, they have been a missing piece of our state's climate agenda. And the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy is intended to close this gap. So we're really excited to align relevant existing state efforts under one cohesive strategy and identify land management actions that help us protect vulnerable communities, achieve carbon neutrality, improve public health and safety, and expand economic opportunity. We're here today because we'd really like to learn about the nature-based climate solutions that are important to you and how a statewide strategy might support the North Coast region's environmental, economic, and equity priorities. So, for example, the science points to sea level rise as a significant threat for the North Coast region, threatening communities, prime agricultural land, critical infrastructure, and wildlife habitat. Are you envisioning nature-based solutions playing a role in reducing these risks, such as restoration of dunes, coastal wetlands, or seagrasses? Future wildfire projections suggest a longer fire season, an increase in wildfire frequency, and expansion of the area susceptible to fire. So are there nature-based climate solutions you feel important to reduce those risks, such as increased grazing, prescribed fire, or conservation of working forests? Are you considering more co-management with California Native American tribes to accelerate climate smart land management? And finally, are there careers in the natural and working land sector you'd like to elevate in the North Coast region, such as habitat restoration technicians, aquaculturists, or prescribed fire burn bosses? Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Jennifer Norris. Thank you again for coming tonight.
Thank you, Amanda. Again, I'm Jennifer Norris, and I'm running point on our 30 by 30 initiative. As you've heard from the Secretary, our goal is to conserve 30% of our lands and coastal waters by 2030. And we want to do so in a manner that protects biodiversity, combats climate change, increases access to nature, and safeguards our economic sustainability and food supply. We are being purposeful in our approach. We want to conserve places that effectively protect the biological diversity of California, our unique plants and animals. We want to conserve lands and waters that meaningfully address climate change in the ways that Amanda outlined. And we want to conserve in a way that provides equitable access to nature and its benefits, like clean water, clean air, climate resilience, and of course, recreation. So what kinds of places are we talking about? Here are some examples from this region. Familiar to probably all of you, Redwood National and State Parks. Since 1994, California State Parks and the National Park Service have been jointly protecting these ancient ecosystems, which are enjoyed by hundreds of thousands of people each year. Coastal redwood forests sequester incredible amounts of carbon and provide habitat for species as diverse as banana slugs and black bears. And as most of you probably know, this area will soon see California condors return. 10 Mile Estuary State Marine Conservation Area is known as one of the least developed estuarine areas in the state. This place is home to salmonids, tidewater gobies, bald eagles, and snowy plover. Popular with hikers, bird watchers, and waterfowl hunters, this site is still used by local tribal people for fishing and other cultural practices. And finally, Big Springs Ranch Wildlife Area, which is operated as a state wildlife area. This 6,000-acre property in Siskiyou County provides some of the best spawning and rearing habitat for coho and Chinook salmon anywhere. The site uses grazing to manage for invasives and fire. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife recently established a working group of tribal and non-tribal fisheries experts to support collaborative species management and habitat restoration on the site. Achieving 30 by 30 will rely on the protection of diverse places like this across the state. Good conservation can happen on every conceivable land type and through lots of different strategies. One size does not fit all. At the end of the day, conservation happens locally, so we need to work together. By February 2022, we will deliver our Pathways to 30 by 30 document, which will identify opportunities and strategies to achieve 30 by 30. It will also identify challenges to meeting our goals. This document is intended to set us on the path to successful implementation of 30 by 30. Today, we want to hear from you and your region about what those opportunities and challenges are. We're interested to know how you think we should go about achieving 30 by 30. Which strategies to conserve lands and coastal waters are most effective in this region? We want to invest in successful approaches. Tell us what those are. At the same time, we'd like to know which strategies are more challenging and why, so we can work to address gaps. Your insights today will be used to develop our document and to help us define conservation. You'll be asked later to share what conservation looks like to you. The executive order called for the establishment of this collaborative approach in recognition of the fact that partners across the state have experience and expertise that we can learn from. This conversation is the beginning of what we hope is an ongoing partnership. 30 by 30 isn't a new mandate, and it won't be accomplished from the top down. By sharing your insights with us, we hope to learn how to be more effective partners. Our ultimate goal is for 30 by 30 to be an open source movement, for people across the state from a diverse array of sectors to commit to achieving 30 by 30 and work with us in partnership. Thank you again for being here. I'm really looking forward to hearing your ideas. Now I'll hand it over to my colleague, Mark Gold.
Thanks, Jen. It's great to see such a good turnout again this afternoon. We've really had amazing turnouts at all of these workshops. I'm glad to be here today as we focus on some of the most pressing issues facing California's efforts to protect our natural habitats, combat climate change, and ensure biodiversity in this great state. For those of you who are not familiar with the Ocean Protection Council, we have a mission to ensure that California maintains healthy, resilient, and productive ocean and coastal ecosystems. The OPC works across various state agencies to coordinate activities related to ocean protection, and we also establish policies that facilitate the collection and sharing of scientific data, as well as identify policy areas that need to be addressed at the state and federal levels. State waters run from the tide lines to 3 miles out, and 16% of coastal waters are part of the statewide Marine Protected Area Network. There are 124 MPAs in this network. 9% of state coastal marine waters are protected through no-take reserves, and another 7% are limited commercial and/or recreational take MPAs. The MPA network is approaching a decadal review of this program by the end of 2022. And currently, we are not looking at potential MPA expansion as part of the 30 by 30 path development for the ocean, nor will we until after the completion of the MPA network decadal review. Our coastal regions and ocean are important ecosystems that are not only places where species thrive, but also serve as main attractions for California residents and visitors who want to enjoy the sand, water, and features of our coastline. These areas are also integral to our economy with aquaculture, energy generation, and the network of ports up and down the state that are essential to the movement of goods in and out of California and the entire nation. Climate change threatens the coast and ocean with rising sea level rise and ocean acidification, while other coastal resources suffer from the impacts of water pollution, harmful algae blooms, and habitat loss. We must take steps now to prevent further erosion of the coast and loss of rocky intertidal habitats, wetlands and beaches, and the loss of kelp forests so important to the North Coast, and the loss of marine life. In order to develop the path to 30 by 30 for coastal waters, stakeholder engagement will be critical to better define what conservation means for California's coastal zone and waters. As examples, California has 34 areas of special biological significance identified, 3 national estuary programs, 3 national estuarine research reserves, and 4 national marine sanctuaries that are all critical for conservation. Most of these areas have additional conservation measures such as oil, gas, and mineral extraction bans in marine sanctuaries, and pollution discharge limits in areas of special biological significance. We can look at these areas as potential candidates for additional conservation measures. Overall, this planning effort will enable California to develop practical and scientifically based strategies that will get us to 30 by 30 for our coastal regions and ocean waters. Thanks. And now back to Jen.
Thanks, Mark. So if you watched our January webinar, you know that we have been working with Esri on a geospatial information system called CA Nature. This system is being designed to be a publicly accessible suite of interactive mapping and visualization tools. CA Nature will bring together maps of biodiversity, climate change, and access, so we can view and analyze different features of the landscape in one place. It will allow us to identify places across California where we have the opportunity to achieve our biodiversity, climate, and equity goals. We will use CA Nature to assess what percentage of California is already conserved and track progress toward our goal. We are currently developing CA Nature using authoritative statewide data that we currently use or have access to. But of course, this is only the first version. We expect to expand this system over time, integrating new data that reflects changes in our understanding and knowledge. Some of you have been asking how you can provide data for use in CA Nature. There is now a submission form on our website where you can provide information about the type of data you want us to consider for future versions. I'll tell you that we're most interested in statewide information that meets our program objectives and meets strong scientific, data, and documentation standards. Stay tuned for future updates on CA Nature. And now I'll turn it over to Debbie.
Thanks, Jen. As you've heard from Amanda, Jen, and Mark, the state has been busy since Governor Newsom issued the executive order. Let's zoom out and look at where we've been and where we're going next. Since Governor Newsom issued the executive order last October, the California Natural Resources Agency and its partner agencies have made some important progress towards developing these strategies. In January, a kickoff webinar was hosted by the state that drew in over 800 interested parties. Also in January, the state began a formal consultation process with California Native American tribes and continues to host tribal listening sessions. The state has also been engaging with interested parties and stakeholders from around the state to hear perspectives and insights related to these efforts. In April, the state launched a website to serve as a portal to learn and engage in developing the Pathways to 30 by 30 and Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart strategy. Also in April, the state released a public input questionnaire to gather experiences and ideas from a broad section of Californians. And today is the 6th of 9 regional workshops to gain input and perspectives. This summer, CNRA will convene several topical advisory panels to address key questions to support the development of the Pathways to 30 by 30 document, the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart strategy, and the CA Nature GIS tool. Each advisory panel will produce a summary document that gives context to their topic area, offers technical or other insights, and provides key recommendations. Topics will include issues related to climate change, biodiversity, and defining conservation, and equitable approaches to this work. The panel will also present their recommendations in virtual workshops. We'll use the information we gathered in the drafting of the Climate Smart Land Strategy document, which will be released this summer for public review and input. This important document will be finalized and delivered in October as we begin the next phase of this effort. Throughout the fall, we'll host another series of virtual engagements to update the public on our progress and to invite more participation. And we'll also be drafting and releasing the other strategy document, Pathways to 30 by 30, where the public's review and input will be critical, just as with Climate Smart Lands. This strategy document will be finalized and delivered in February 2022. To support this effort, we've launched a new website, californianature.ca.gov, to serve as the portal of information about advancing 30 by 30 and climate smart lands. This new website features information about the executive order, how nature-based solutions work, important data on climate change in California, ways to get involved through the regional workshops and other events, and a place to share your insights. We also launched an interactive public input questionnaire to solicit input that can be used in developing the two main strategy documents that will guide the work we must do as a state. Responses to this questionnaire are welcome until May 14th. And finally, we want you to stay in touch. Please contact us, ask questions, or provide your experiences and ideas via these multiple platforms: email, regular mail, or voicemail. And now I'll turn it over to Jenna Tourget, who will cover the Exploring the Region segment of this workshop.
Great, thank you, Debbie. Now we're moving on to the portion of today's workshop that focuses in on perspectives of the North Coast region and provide an opportunity for the public to participate in the process. Today's regional workshop is in the North Coast region, and for our purposes, the region consists of Del Norte, Siskiyou, Trinity, Humboldt, Mendocino, and Lake counties. Around 370,000 people call the North Coast region home, and the region supports approximately 120,000 jobs. As you are well aware, the region has the most productive forestry sector in the state, producing around 613 million board feet per year. The region also has the highest proportion of publicly owned land in the state at over half. This land is primarily owned and operated by the U.S. Forest Service. And as you probably know, the North Coast region is rich in both natural and agricultural lands. And as might be expected, the region's land cover is dominated by tree forests at almost 3/4 of the total. Shrublands and grasslands, including pasture, make up most of the rest of the land cover, with settlements making up just 4%. We wanted to provide this regional snapshot before we dive further into our meeting. Your perspective will be important as we move to the next section, where we engage with you and gather your input on a series of questions that will be used in developing strategies. To get your experiences and ideas, we'll be using a software called Poll Everywhere. There will be 3 ways to participate. You can go participate on computer by opening a browser window like Chrome, Explorer, Edge, Firefox, and going to www.pollev.com/kwpoll1. And the link to this is going to be in your chat window as well. You can also participate in the same way on your smartphone by opening a browser and going to www.pollev.com/kwpoll1. Or a really easy way is to participate by text. You can send the word KWPoll1, KWPOLL1 to the number 22333. I'll repeat that. If you'd like to respond to the polls using a text message, please text the phrase KWPOLL with the number 1 at the end to 22333. Our facilitators will let you know when to use your preferred option to respond to questions. And this, just to let everyone know, this tool allows us to save your answers to help inform the direction of this initiative. So before we move on to the next slide, I want to note to folks that when you're typing a note in more than one word, like 2 words or 3 words, type an underscore between the 2 words. We're going to be seeing a word cloud here, and it'll allow us to see that phrase in one section. So underscore between the 2 words. So I'll have us move on to the next slide here. And the first question is, where are you located? So KWPOLL1 to 22333 or pollev.com/KWPoll1. The question is, where are you located? And as we wait for those responses to come in, I'll remind you that there's 2 ways to do it, through the browser and through text. And I'll let my team know here we might need to resync the slide so that we can see the responses on the screen. And if we pause the screen and redo it, we'll see a great word cloud come in with where folks are located. So as we're typing in those responses here of where we're located, as we go on future in the workshop, you won't have to type the underscore in future questions, but for this one, the underscore is helpful to be able to create the word cloud. So as we let the computer do the work behind the scenes, I'll vamp a little bit. All right, so we have some good responses in here. We have folks in from Mendocino, from Humboldt, from Sacramento. From the county, so I'm guessing from different counties. From Sonoma. From Fort Bragg, Petaluma. Folks dialing in from Ventura County, from Santa Rosa, San Francisco. All right, wonderful. I'm going to do another 5 seconds on this slide here. South Lake Tahoe, Mendocino, and Humboldt, as well as Fort Bragg, are coming up fairly high. All right, I'm going to move us on to the next question. All right, so the next question is, what sector do you represent? So there are the options of A, government, which is federal, state, or local. B, tribal government or tribal community. C, business, investors, labor. D, non-governmental community-based organization. E, academic. F, general public. All right, and as you're testing out texting or going into your browser for this answer here, we're starting to see some common themes. That non-government community-based organization, just under 50% of folks who are responding on the call, on the webinar. The next is government, federal, state, or local. We have folks joining us from the general public. And then fairly neck and neck is tribal government and tribal community, business, investors, and labor, and academic. Great. I'm going to give us another 5 or so seconds on this slide, just so folks can see. And we want to thank you all for being with us here today. All right, next slide. So then the last question in the plenary before we go into breakout rooms. When you think about nature or special places in this region, what comes to mind? So I'll remind folks to use the underscore if you're using one or more words. Trees coming up first. I see Humboldt, I see the redwoods. When you think about nature or special places in the region, what comes to mind? All right, the Klamath Mountains, woodlands, the eelgrass, tide pools, cultural landscapes, fish. Got a little tiny for me to read, but it'll come back in a second. All right, I see the redwoods so strongly in this response here. And just as a reminder for folks, if I don't call it out or it doesn't get highlighted, we are still seeing it on the back end. And I think this is Ross here. Ross, can you change the view really quick and then change it back so we can see the word cloud coming through? You just do the text wall there and then back to word cloud. All right. Well, that's good enough for now. I will move us on to our next section here. So thanks for participating with us in Poll Everywhere. We'll be using that a lot in the next couple minutes as well. So this is the plenary session of the meeting, but a key goal of this meeting is to further invite your input to help inform the development of the Natural Lands Climate Smart Strategy and the 30 by 30 Pathways document. And as we have such a large number of participants, we're going to transition into breakout groups so that your participation and input can be most effectively captured. So in the breakout session, we will be asking you to provide your experiences and ideas in 3 areas. The first is regional interests and current efforts. The next is regional challenges. And then the third, regional opportunities. So participants who requested interpretation upon registration will remain here in the main room. Because you will be staying here, you will not get a prompt to join a breakout room. If you're a phone call-in user, you won't get a prompt to join in breakout room. Other webinar participants will be randomly assigned to breakout room 1, breakout room 2, or to stay in this main room here. So there'll be 3 rooms this afternoon. So we'll capture your input in the 3 rooms, similar to how we've done in this plenary section. So recognizing that questions are high level, we're asking you to share brief responses, and we're hoping to get common themes from responses. The intent is also to give an opportunity for you to see and reflect on other people's responses as well. And following the workshop, the facilitation team will compile all of the responses to all of the questions and prepare a meeting summary. It will contain a synthesis of common themes, and all responses will be treated equally and be included in the meeting summary appendices. I want folks to remember that there's also a public input questionnaire that is running parallel to the regional workshops. This questionnaire is intended to provide interested communities and members of the public with a more detailed opportunity to provide targeted input to inform the development of the 30 by 30 Pathways document and the Natural and Working Lands Climate Smart Strategy. Again, since phone participants can't provide input via computer browser, we'll accommodate you in the main room. A lot of you will stay in this main room, but if you receive an invitation to enter a breakout group, please follow the message and prompt on your screen. And we thank you for your patience in the next few minutes as we transition to the breakout group. All right, folks are moving. Again, thank you everyone for your patience as we transition. So everyone here stayed in the room, but there are a lot of people going into other rooms. And we'll take a moment for us to settle in here. Okay. So folks on my end here, if you can also, if possible, spotlight Amanda so that we can see Amanda as part of this. So Amanda Henson is still in the room with us today, and we will be working together in the next little while as we get your input. So again, I wanted to thank you for your patience as we are here. So this is the accommodations room. There's a lot of people calling in from the webinar, as well as phone-only participants and non-English speaking participants. And as a reminder, one, we are still recording this session and streaming live on YouTube for others to be able to view at a later time. And the second is that our interpretation services are still happening here as well. So if you joined late to the room, you can look for instructions for interpretation in the chat as well. So my name is Jenna Tourget. I'm your facilitator during this session. We have a lot of information to give you, so make sure you have the proper instructions so we can ensure everyone to participate. I wanted you to stick with me for a couple of minutes. I have a longer monologue, but it's just to make sure that we have all our phone participants able to participate as we move into this section of the workshop. And we recognize that folks calling in from phone might not have an option to participate by computer. So we've designed this room to collect your input verbally as well as by text. That being said, we encourage you to provide text responses if you're reasonably able and if there's no financial burden. These text responses allow us to more accurately capture your input, and I'll share that throughout as well. So we're in the same room, but a new room. So in the last section, we were going on www.pollev.com/kwpoll1. We're now in KW poll 2. So if you were in that before, I encourage you to close out that session altogether. So just close out that page. Or if you're in a text chain, you're going to participate in a different way. But if you're in your browser window, close out that page, open a new browser window. The link is in the chat, www.pollev.com/kwpoll2. Smartphone, www.pollev.com/kwpoll2, and texting 22333 to kwpoll2. If you're not able to share your, if you're a phone calling user and you're not able to text in your responses, you can respond by pressing *9 on your phone. If you press *9 on your phone, it lets me know that your hand is raised. I will unmute you, and then I'll ask you to press *6 on your phone to unmute on your end, and then you can give a verbal response as well. I'll put you back on mute when you're done. And due to the large number of participants, in the next 60 minutes, I'll take 3 verbal responses per question, endeavoring to give as many participants the opportunity to speak as possible. I see one of our phone call-in users already raised their hand. So if you're ending in 7056, we're excited that you're here with us. I'm going to get into the questions, and then I'll call on you to see if you have a response to that question as well. So thank you so much for being here with us today again. And again, if you're not able to share your oral responses or provide response through pollev.com/kwpoll2, you can answer, you can provide input through the public input questionnaire at californianature.ca.gov. Okay, so the breakout session will be organized in 3 themes, as I mentioned before: regional interests, current efforts, and challenges and opportunities. We will have a total of 10 questions. So we'll have 5 to 6 minutes to respond to each question. And I'll let you know when there are 2 minutes and 1 minute left. And then I'll also let you all know where we are in terms of phone call-in users and their verbal responses. I encourage you to take time in crafting your response to the questions. 1 sentence or 2 sentences is great, because then we can actually read it as it goes line by line. And then after you submit your response, you can review and reflect on the responses being shared by others, as you'll see on the screen. Okay, and as another reminder before we go on, if you're providing response and I don't see it or read it, it's still being captured on the back end, and that will be included in the summary. So nothing is lost that is sent to us. All right, so let's move on to our first question here. Our first question is, thinking about biodiversity in this region, what species, habitats, or places are important to protect? So thinking about biodiversity in the region, what species, habitats, or places are important to protect? So I see serpentine soils and rock outcrops, the marbled murrelet, Pacific fisher, the northern spotted owl, the Klamath River. All right, and as these are going across the screen here, I will ask our phone call-in user with a raised hand if you would like to be unmuted to respond to this question. And so if your phone number is ending in 7056, I will unmute you here, and you dial *6 on your end to unmute yourself. And do you have a response to this?
Yeah, we certainly need to focus on marbled murrelet survival and recovery. And we need not only like the Huffman bill proposed a Mad River South Fork Trinity restoration area, we also need an Elk River Van Dusen River restoration area, and we need to protect the area from southern Humboldt, including Richardson Grove, down through the Jackson Demonstration State Forest. The easiest thing the state of California could do to improve to try to protect the redwood ecosystem, improve climate resiliency, and protect habitat and improve recreation is to improve management at Jackson Demonstration State Forest in Mendocino County, where trees up to 77 inches in diameter are targeted by CAL FIRE. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And we will be capturing that input as well to include in the survey. We appreciate your response there as well. All right, so reminder for call-in users, if you do have a response to this, you can press *9 and let us know. I'm seeing some other options come in about biodiversity in the region, especially rivers, the Eel River, and redwood trees, because they sequester carbon. Also, I wanted to send a quick reminder for this one. You do not have to underscore between the words. It will come in as sentences here, so we can see your responses there as well. So if I can get, I think I'm going to give us another minute or 2 on this question. So if I can have my team just resync this page here. Thinking about biodiversity in the region, what species, habitats, or places are important to protect? Or just scroll down a little bit. I want to read a few of them out so that we can see folks who have responded before. All right. So I think I've seen some good responses come into this one. And again, all of your input is captured on the back end. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you, Jasmine. So salmon and steelhead, the oak woodlands, second growth redwood forest, the conversion of monoculture agriculture. conifer and mixed conifer, hardwood forests, the river, the wetlands, again, biodiversity, what species, habitats, and places are important to protect. The northern spotted owl, seabirds, serpentine soils, and rock outcrops. All right, thank you so much. Let's move on to the next question here. And the next question is a reminder, you can text 22333 the word KW poll 2. So if you have 22333 opened but you haven't typed the word KW poll 2, your polls will be going somewhere else. We'll still capture it, but we won't see it here on the screen. So just as a reminder to type the message KW poll 2 into your phone as well. So the second question is thinking about this region, what nature-based climate solutions are important to you? So nature-based climate solutions are important to you. And for our call-in users, if you have a verbal response to this as well, we'd love to hear it, *9. So I see preventing timber harvesting in Jackson Demonstration State Forest. Fire resilience, moving from an ignition system, limited system to a fuel limited system. Restoration of estuaries. Restoring coastal dunes and wetlands. Ending commercial logging on public lands. Protecting marine fisheries and salmonids. Grazing as a management tool. Protection of our fantastic estuaries. Riparian restoration. All right, I'm seeing some good themes come in, including the estuaries, the wetlands, river restoration, stream restoration. Specifically, nature-based climate solutions that are important. Lowland redwood forests offer the best carbon sequestration opportunities. So in the presentation, Amanda mentioned some examples, including community greening, wetland restoration, climate smart agricultural innovations, private land management. I'm seeing so many more come in here. Working forests and rangelands, forest management and improvement, habitat restoration, the restoration of wetlands, restoring meadows encroached after fire suppression, the multi-use of public lands, extended rotations on timberlands, another note on grazing, getting the cows out of wilderness areas, note that harvest of timber can be ethical, with some notes as well. Prescribed fire. Carbon farming on agricultural lands. And if you're a call-in user, we'd love to hear your responses too to what nature-based climate solutions are important to you. *9 on your phone will let us know that you want to speak and raise your hand. *9 on your phone if you're joining us as a call-in user. Managing wildfires to meet resource objectives. Planting on empty lots. Another note on grazing, expanding grazing on all public lands. We have another minute or so, so as you're seeing things come through here, you can add your comments as well. Improve water quality and keeping water temperatures cold for more aquatic biomass and diversity. And Michelle, I see your hand is raised here. If you want to make sure to either use the Poll Everywhere web browser or the text to send in your responses, we're looking forward to hearing from you today. Grazing to control fuel. community-based programs to provide habitat and meet climate goals in local parks, neighborhoods, front yards, etc. Salt marsh restoration and living shorelines. Coastal dune restoration. A note that grazing is not one size fits all, but must be carefully prescribed and monitored. We're seeing such rich responses coming through here to what nature-based climate solutions are important. I want to thank everyone for their responses here. Okay, so I'm going to give us another 10 seconds or so as these are coming through, and is just a reminder for folks, if I didn't read it out loud or you didn't see it on the screen, it is going into our system as well, and we are getting that input. And if there's something longer that you would like to provide as well, there is the public input questionnaire. Okay, cows are good. Oh, all right, next question. So our third question here, with regard to 30 by 30 and or nature-based solutions, how can we advance equity and opportunity in this region? So this question is about how do we advance equity and inclusion? So thinking about access to nature and recreation in this region, how can we do it equitably and how can we increase equitable access? So I see a note here on the Great Redwood Trail. And again, if you're a call-in user, *9, for folks who are unable to access their computer or text, we do have that verbal opportunity for phone-only call-in users. So supporting tribal land back efforts, giving tribes a greater role in ecosystem stewardship, grants for community-based programs, an increase in public transit to parks, teach school children about our public lands. A note on increasing access, and so I might ask, for increasing access, how do we get there? Equity can be served by including tribal voices about protecting cultural artifacts. There's an opportunity specifically at Jackson. Lower fees for low-income visitors. Protecting ag lands provides jobs. Including more nature-based occupational training in more educational institutions. Paying a living wage to do restoration work. This will cost more money than relying on inmates and youth crews as well. The co-management with tribes on ancestral lands. Designing programs that are culturally diverse. See a note on stop logging on public lands to maintain and support tourism. So I'm going to give us 2 more minutes on this question here. If there's anything that's coming up on the screen that's reminding you of something that you would see as an opportunity to advance equity and opportunity in this region. And if you're just joining us, I'm going to have my team enter the link to this poll in the chat box, pollev.com/kwpoll2, or you can text 22333. The word KWPOLL2. All right, supporting environmental education and service learning in rural areas. Subsidizing access to state parks for underserved communities. Providing at-risk communities transportation to events in natural areas. Retraining for those who have lost jobs due to the COVID impact. Okay, another few seconds on this question here as we think through advancing equity and opportunity in the region. We see gender-based analysis and adequate fund maintenance for state parks so they're actually open to the public. Community forests for developing commercial non-timber forest products. language inclusion for diverse communities. I see treating forest workers and harvesters with dignity and fairness regardless of cultural background. Alternate day scheduling of popular trails use. So I'm seeing some programmatic responses, also access to natural resources, as well as providing natural resources for different folks in the region as well. All right, so I'll move us, as we move on to the next one, another key aspect was economic opportunities as well, seeing that as a key theme that's coming through. There are such rich responses here and so specific to the region. We're really glad that you are all here providing input. We have a couple more questions in this section here. What is working in this region to conserve lands and or coastal waters and implement nature-based solutions to climate change? It's a packed question. The question is, what is working to conserve lands, to conserve coastal waters, to implement nature-based solutions to climate change? And as we're thinking about what is working, we're interested in success stories. We're interested in existing strategies, programs, policies, initiatives that you think are working well. And if there's specific goals or targets as part of what's working well. So I see forest resilient projects in economically disadvantaged communities. Another thing I'm seeing working well is regulation, as folks are typing that in. California condor reintroduction, ag land conservation, fire restoration, timber management, including harvesting, recreation of old growth redwood stands, recreation of old growth redwood stands, the Williamson Act, the California Coastal Act, some very specific regulation, strong partnerships between agencies, make sure we all know what's going on with each other's lands. Things that are working well are successes, state parks, the Eel River Recovery Grade and middle school programs, state propositions. I didn't get to see the rest of that, but it's there. Education in schools and the community to allow students and residents to learn about problems with the climate crisis specifically. Permanent protection of working lands, the Eel River Dam removal, some specific programs and areas, the marine protected designated areas, things that are successful, initiatives, programs that are successful, forest legacy program, the California Commission, State Department of Fish and Wildlife. And as a reminder for folks, as you're seeing things coming on the screen, and if I'm not reading them, no worries, they're going slow just for me to read through, but everything you've texted in, everything on the web is being captured. So it's instantaneously captured once you send it. Something that's working, hopefully this workshop, I hope so too. Humboldt State University Natural Resources Educational Programs, retire grazing allotments on public lands, increase prescribed burnings. Mendocino Woodlands does a great job bringing school children and adult campers to the redwoods. And if you're a phone call-in user, *9, we'd love to hear your response on this as well. What is working in the region? Okay, local residents raising concerns to local, regional, and state governments. State parks grant programs to purchase lands for local parks. Partnerships and collaboration between diverse agencies. So I'm seeing agency collaboration and partnerships is something that's working well. The Noyo Center for Marine Sciences. The Pacific Forest Trust. some key themes I'm seeing: management, some policy tools, funding, educational programs, working lands protection, restoration, partnerships. Such great insight coming through. Thank you so much for providing that input. Seeing conservation easements, groups and leaders holding electeds accountable. Co-management with tribal governments, and that we could do more. Don't worry, we'll have a question on challenges too. Western Klamath Restoration Partnership. And let's do one more minute here. Radio station KZYX's broad and outstanding coverage of interests and issues. The CCI Forest Health Grants Program. Engaging tribes early in the process. All right, so I'm going to move us on to the next question and just remind folks that everything's being captured here. And we are so thankful for your input. So even if it hasn't come up yet, this is just a slower presentation mode for me, but you need to be able to read these out as we're here, and for you to be able to see what your fellow participants are adding as well. So I'll move us on to question 5 here. Question 5. And in this question, we're thinking about what the word conservation means. So I'll frame it as we move on to the next question here. The state has not yet defined conservation for this context of 30 by 30, and we're interested in what you think. So thinking back to earlier examples, and from Jen's presentation, she described the state's approach as conserving places that protect species, plants, animals that meaningfully address and protect us from the effects of climate change, and provide recreational opportunities and access to nature. Oh, everyone, I'm so sorry. I moved us on to the next question. I was really excited about question 5. I'm actually, I'd like to move us to question 5, and then I'm going to go back to this. Actually, we'll stay here. Everyone forgive me for that. So this is question 4B. What is working in this region to increase equitable access to nature and its benefits? We'll get to conservation in a minute. Don't think you've lost out on it. So what's working in this region to increase equitable access to nature and its benefits? All right, the first response I see is trails, affordable, free state parks. So thank you everyone for your patience on that. Thank you for your team, my team, for noting that for me. The Mendocino woodlands, public lands are accessible to everyone. So it's working in the region to increase equitable access. Sarasota community forest trails, permitting recreational activities in state parks and state forests. What's working is public lands with access along the coast. So success stories of what's working. Ensuring ADA accessible facilities and recreation sites. What's working is affordable camping. This workshop, if you will help if you really listen, and also to decrease fees on public lands. What's working? The North Coast Resource Partnership, the Fort Bragg partnerships to create the coastal trail along the old GP mill site. Another thing that's working to increase equitable access to nature and its benefits. I'm seeing trails as a theme throughout, so whether it's the coastal trail or access to trails for hiking and cycling. The NPA collaborative. All right, let's spend another minute or so on this question here, what's working in this region. And as a reminder for folks, as you go from question to question, if you want to refresh your browser, if you're still seeing another question, you can see 4B on your screen. So if you refresh your browser, that happens to me sometimes. Nonprofit organizations hosting youth groups. California Native Plant Society trips and programs, allowing amateur mushrooming, strong community engagement and management of species, the local Audubon, and outreach to young people, schools, informing them about natural areas near their homes. Another thing that's working to increase equitable access is the Coastal Conservancy grants that aim to provide affordable access to low-income residents. Okay, so I will move us on to the next question, and guess what? You know what it is already, which is, what is conservation? So I framed it for you. We'll talk about it again. We have yet to define what conservation means in this context. So what does conservation mean to you? If you're a phone call-in user, again, *9 on your phone. If you're a phone-only call-in user, *9 on your phone. We'd love to hear what conservation means to you as we define it. Again, refresh your browser on your screen too, so you can see this as well. So refresh the browser. And I think we also put the link in the chat as well, so you can click on that if you accidentally close the browser. All right, so conserving 30% of its lands and coastal waters by 2030. The protection of private working lands, leaving them in private ownership, is conservation. Habitat restoration. Protecting our ag lands. Areas not developed into urban areas. Adapting to sea level rise with living shorelines. Conservation of quality of life for people.
Hey, Jenna, we all just joined your breakout room. You now have 150
Well,
people in here.
I am so glad that you are all here. We are in question 5.
I think we'll leave again. At least I hope we will, because I don't think we got to question 5 yet.
All right, what question, Jen, what question were you all on?
We were on 4B.
We were on 4B. I
4B.
think they're going to move us back, but go ahead, Jenna.
Oh,
Okay, here we go.
Invited back.
So
Sorry, y'all.
everyone in Debbie's breakout room, please join room 1.
All right, folks in my room, are you still here? I'm gonna, just for this one, have everyone raise their hand if they're still here. You can raise your hand if you want, just a couple folks. All right, I see a couple claps, a couple thumbs up signs. And as folks joined and left, I think we have a few questions, a few responses that have been coming through here. I'm just going to send a quick verbal piece for people who are in this room that didn't join the other breakout room. We are at pollev.com/kwpoll2. It's kwpoll2. The link will be reposted in the chat as well. So conservation means halt any exemptions for development in coastal zones. It does not mean more government land ownership. It means fire resilience, creating and restoring natural ecosystems. Create conserved areas, provided ecosystem services, and have a relatively robust protection from development. All right, and if you're in my room here, we love having you here. And if you join from another breakout room, the link to what this poll is here. But again, if you're on the other poll, you can still provide your responses. It will just, the timing will be to this poll in this room. So it's pollev.com/kwpoll2 and texting the word kwpoll2 to your text thread of 22333 if you're using text. All right, so I'll move us on to the next question, which is question 6. Question 6. And this question is on challenges. And as a reminder, we have folks in interpretation lines in here, we have phone call-in users here, and we have folks who have joined us by webinar as well. So we're glad that you're all here today. All the input you provide is being captured. If you have a response to this question from the phone, *9 on your phone here. And again, the link to this poll is in the chat room, but it's poll.ev.com/kwpoll2. So this question is describe the greatest challenges to conserving lands and or coastal waters and implementing nature-based solutions to climate change. So we asked before, what are some opportunities? So this is the challenges. What are the greatest challenges to conserving lands or coastal waters and implementing nature-based solutions to climate change? All right, so 6A. 6A. The greatest challenges. So I think, Jasmine, you're still in my room here, unless you got pulled into another breakout room. Let's resync this slide. There we go. Funding is a challenge. Capitalism, the enforcement of existing laws, controlling invasive species, time, getting federal and state land managing agencies to work together is a challenge. We saw that as something that's working well, but also a hint that it could be a challenge. So we're seeing that here as well. Finding funding for management and maintenance of restored areas. And if you're someone who joined us from another breakout room, all of the questions are the same in all of the breakout rooms. You're just in this one now with me as the facilitator. So we're getting all your responses. And the link to the poll is in the chat as well. And at the top of the screen, you can see it too. So the last thing I left on was collaboration. I see here collaboration is hard and time consuming. That there's climate change deniers. There's tens of thousands of private working lands are teed up to permanently conserve. Green tape. Disagreement among people about the best way to tackle these issues. The controversy can be a quagmire that inhibits programs. Greatest challenge is we need more water storage. Land water users who won't help in learning new ways. So thinking about different types of users. Getting scientific rigorous standards for what biodiversity means. Coastal waters need to be 30% or more in marine protected areas. A challenge is road construction near roadless areas. Being a challenge is fire suppression is still a dominant response to all fires. A challenge that we might not need more government land. There's not enough funding to subsidize rooftop solar. Salvage logging. Keep ecotourism low impact and carbon neutral. Being a challenge as cannabis cultivation changing land uses in small patches, creating a large-scale impact when looked at over time. Okay, so let's spend another couple, let's say another 30 seconds on this question here, and we'll move on to the next. So challenges, some key themes I've seen are like funding, needing more state dollars for ag land conservation, some challenges of collaboration, of definition, of regulations. Okay. So I'll move us on to our next question here. So our next question is 6B. Please describe the greatest challenge to increasing equitable access to nature and its benefits. Equitable access to nature and its benefits. So we just talked about the challenge to implementing nature-based solutions, and this one is greatest challenges to increasing equitable access to nature and its benefits. As we wait for this to load, I want to thank everyone for the rich response that we're having here. I know in all of our breakout rooms and in this main room here, we've received such great input. And so I want to thank you so much for that. And I think, Jasmine, if we can resync the presentation here. Or go back to the previous slide and come back to this slide. And Jasmine, you can also let me know if you're seeing something on the screen that maybe I'm not seeing, but right now we have the little spinny circle saying that we're getting participants. All right, here we go. So I'm seeing greed, logging, high park fees, public transportation in the US not being the most ideal, the connection of kids with nature, challenge is income inequality, thinking about productive lands are private and inaccessible to the public. Politicians who are not informed. Slow start recognizing social justice issues. The challenge is all public lands are accessible to everyone. We need state, federal coordination to protect volcanic source aquifers on Mount Shasta. That communities have insufficient green nature space close to where people live. A challenge to reduce fees for access and ensure that loggers who already paid to the right to log get their money to protect the forest. The lack of political willpower. State, federal, tribal coordination is a challenge. Looking maybe that there's too many people, overuse of public lands that do not have enough basic services, bathrooms, water, etc. And again, if you're a phone call-in user, we'd love to hear, phone-only call-in user, we'd love to hear from you as well. Let's take another minute or so on this question. Invasive noxious weeds destroying wildlands. Public lands not being used for the public good. Poor public process at the county level, especially as concerns timber sales and other forest treatments. Looking at another topic of funding to bring kids to nature. All right, and I see a phone call-in user with their hand raised. I'll unmute you now and remember to push *9 on your end here. Sorry, *6 to unmute yourself. So 7056, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Well, actually, I was thinking that we need to list the California spotted owl, but that's further south. But the Trump administration stripped 4.3 million acres of critical habitat for the northern spotted owl, more in the North Coast territory. And so that obviously needs to be treated as critical habitat, whatever leftover Trump administration ruling there was. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And we've captured your input on that as well. We appreciate that. Okay, so I'm seeing a couple other quite a few other responses here. Challenges to increasing equitable access to nature, childcare incentives, corporations lobbying politicians for resource extraction, state agencies ignoring illegal activities, changing technologies. All right, I'm going to take us to the next question, which is question 7. And this is on our third and final topic here. And I want you to think big for this response. Think big for this response. What does long-term success look like for nature-based climate solutions in this region? So what does long-term success look like? I think for our phone call-in users, *9 on your phone to raise your hand and let us know you have a question. *9 on your phone. What does long-term success look like for nature-based solutions? So I'm seeing no more development in the 30-foot sea level rise zone. And if you refresh your browser window, it'll pop up with this question as well. That 30% of coastal waters have MPA protection. Long-term success for nature-based solutions. Long-term success looks like fire promotes ecosystem resilience and health, even unplanned events. Community stewardship. The eradication of invasive noxious weeds. Saying big picture, long-term success is people lead lives full of joy, contentment, security, because nature gives them richness that money does not provide, that nature gives people home. Big picture for sure. We find other kinds of construction materials and non-fossil fuel sources for building and heating and traveling. Timber and ag products, processing opportunities. Protected areas support diverse vegetation that supports pollinators. Nature is an integral part of people's daily lives. Big picture, long-term success looks like ample water supplies for people and industry, but there's proper management, harvest, and use of all natural resources. Promoting renewable and zero carbon energy sources. That water is not wasted, fisheries are healthy and feed people. Fire diversity across the landscape, like patch size and severity. Let's take another moment on this question here. What does long-term success look like for nature-based solutions in this region? That fish have water. There's increased water storage to meet demand. That we support small and local conservation organizations. Repopulation of salmon from the brink of extinction. There's nonprofit ownership of coastal forests and watersheds with sustainable resource use. But the climate does not change significantly. Long-term success looking like families gathering food and hunting together in forests. The reintroduction of the sea otter to combat urchin barrens. The recovery of old growth forest conditions. And folks, I can see Amanda writing down responses as well, but she'll also get a full summary of this and all the responses, but I can see her taking notes too. 30% of California is in wilderness or state and national parks. No more government land acquisition. Return state and federal lands to private lands. Looking at property management. No more sprawl type development. Long-term success. Big picture, long-term success. Spotted owls flourish. High quality timber production does not harm wildlife. All right, I'm going to give us another minute or so. These are such rich responses coming through, such a diversity of responses. We really appreciate folks taking the time to think through your answers. And as you see something coming up that reminds you of something else that would be seen as a success, make sure you're typing it or texting it in or verbally responding as well. Reduced GHG, greenhouse gas emissions, and increased carbon sequestration to reduce negative climate effects. Cities implement a dark skies plan that there's fully supported private working lands. A big picture long-term success is communities create shared common lands as green belts around communities to enjoy nature and harvest native foods sustainably. That there's healthy oak woodlands and the undamming of the Eel River. Long-term success. All right. The public lands are for, public are not afraid of public land ownership, that public lands work for everyone. I'm going to have us move on to our final question here. And this next question is focused on 30 by 30. So we thought about long-term success, but what does success look like for 30 by 30? So thinking ahead to 2030, 9 years down the line, what do you hope has happened in your region? Again, this can be higher regional level or project-specific outcomes. So refresh your browsers, use the same text chain, or if you're new to the room, 22333 to type in KWPOLL2, and a link to the chat. The link to the poll is in your chat as well. What does success look like for 30 by 30? All currently proposed wilderness areas are designated by Congress. What does success look like for 30 by 30? It sets the stage for 50 by 50. Even more sustainability is possible. Markedly healthier rivers. The Jackson State Forest is used for the public good. That all landowners that want to permanently protect their working lands can do so. More newspaper press releases talking about progress in 30 by 30. That there's a balanced approach where not every approach is the used one on every acre. So site-specific uses to promote ecosystem health. All proposed wild and scenic rivers have been made a part of our wild and scenic rivers system. And I want to remind folks, if you came from another room or if you were thrown in here from another breakout room, don't worry, your responses are being captured. We have it, we've got it. It's all working through the Poll Everywhere system. We're glad you're here and providing these responses, and you can also provide responses in the public input questionnaire as well. Sensing living wage is success, that there's integrated regional conservation strategy. Communities continue to grow, but not at the expense of nature. There's more Native American young people involved in the 30 by 30 process. That the Navarro River is restored. What does success look like for 30 by 30? There's more public dialogue and public input on how we use our public lands. that everyone lives within 10 minutes walk of a park or equivalent green space. Seeing the Eel River Dam removal, that we financially support rural communities. All right, I'm gonna give us another couple minutes on this question here. What does success look like for 30 by 30? What does success look like? So that can be the regional level or programmatic project outcome too. But there's more water storage on Eel and Russian rivers, that tribes are co-managers. There's more funding for local restoration projects, that the Gualala River watershed is protected from commercial logging and the river supports steelhead and coho salmon. The volcanic source aquifers are protected from pollution, hydraulic fracturing, and exploitation. More jobs based on environmental stewardship. Fire prevention, controlled burning is focused right around communities. That land is valued not only for just the good of man, but thinks of nature's voice. Indigenous-led conservation efforts continue into the future. There's incentives to reduce herbicide use by Caltrans. Ecological forestry. Increased diverse harvest management of rural land. That we're valuing ecosystem services. That housing in rural communities is available to people at all income levels. That conservation initiatives are integrated in all state priorities. Forest management for climate resiliency and fire prevention rather than profit. And for our phone call-in users, we'd love to hear what you think success looks like for 30 by 30. You can press *9 on your phone to let us know that you've raised your hand. But there's payment to landowners for ecosystem services they provide. Success for 30 by 30 looking like water diversion pumping from coastal streams to support communities is compatible with sustaining ecosystem health. All right, I see our phone call-in, one of our phone call-in users has a note here. So 7056, I'm going to unmute you here, *6 on your end as well. So I think you're unmuted. What does success look like for 30 by 30?
Some conservation biologists think there's a 0% chance the marbled murrelet will survive south of the Humboldt-Mendocino County line beyond 2040. Let's fool them and try to make them survive. And the General Jackson to Navarro, Elk Creek, and Gualala areas are key to that recovery. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much for that input. So that is proving some folks wrong about species that could survive as part of the success for 30 by 30. Water sequestration mandate for cannabis cultivation. More government land ownership and completely protected. That there's more public land, that there's dry farm grapes, rooftop solar. Success looking like nuclear energy seen as a solution. Species are no longer going extinct. And seeing some themes of protection of wilderness areas, including rivers, forests, and water resources. Of healthy ecosystems, that there's more funding, there's economic benefits of conservation, that there's public and private management for land conservation. Those are some very rich themes and really specific to this region. I really appreciate folks sending those along. All right. So I'm I'm going to give us another minute on this question here, what success looks like for 3030. I saw someone earlier mentioned conservation practices are economically sustainable. That there's fully funded ag land conservation. Forests are food groves for rural and tribal communities. All right. So I'm going to move us on to our wrap up and next steps. Again, as a reminder for folks, if you didn't see your response on the screen, we captured it through Poll Everywhere. It's automatically cataloged and we'll be including that in the summary. I want to thank everyone for sharing your ideas and experiences during today's meeting. As a reminder, the workshop has been recorded and will be available online at our website, www.californianature.ca.gov. We'll be posting meeting summaries with non-attributable comments captured during these meetings. You can also provide feedback on today's experience by completing a post-workshop evaluation that will be emailed to you. And we invite you to stay connected by visiting our website, www.californianature.ca.gov. There you can provide additional written comments through the public input questionnaire and sign up to attend one of our future events. In the chat box, we posted a link to www.californianature.ca.gov. And we also have in there where you can submit additional comments. You can email, you can send US postal mail, you can leave a voicemail as well. All of that information is on the website. I'm going to turn it over to Amanda for any final words. Amanda, over to you.
Just a huge round of thanks to all of you for this just super substantial input, really meaningful and clearly reflective of your region. You know, the focus on rivers, on forests, on coasts. It's just very striking and really just can't thank you enough because I know that everybody's really busy and we have lives and it's dinner time. So I just want to express my gratitude for your sharing of your experiences and your expertise and recommendations. So thank you all.
All right, and thank you, Amanda. So the meeting is now over, and so you can exit the meeting by pushing the X at the top of your window here. You can also, at the bottom of the screen, click on Leave, and that will leave the meeting. And again, we thank you for joining us, or if you're on your phone, you can just hang up as well. So again, thank you so much for the rigorous and robust conversation. We appreciate your time here this afternoon and evening. Goodbye.